Hey everyone, welcome back to the Common Sense podcast by Ezyecons. Today's myth, it's one that sparks debates in classrooms, coffee shops, and comment sections all over the internet. Raising the minimum wage always helps workers, and lowering it always hurts them. Sounds fair, right? If people earn more, they live better. But as with most things in economics, it's not that simple. Let's dive into why raising the minimum wage isn't always good or bad, and what it really means for workers, businesses, and the economy. You've heard this a million times. If we raise the minimum wage, people can finally afford rent, groceries, and a decent life. That sounds logical. Who wouldn't want that? But here's the twist. Raising the minimum wage could also lead to fewer jobs, higher prices, and even push more businesses to shut down. So, how can something that's meant to help people sometimes end up hurting them? Let's unpack that. The idea is simple. If you make $10 an hour and suddenly get $15, that's more money in your pocket. You spend more, businesses earn more, and everyone wins. That's the textbook story, and politically, it's a powerful message. A higher wage floor feels like a win for fairness, dignity, and hard work. But economics isn't just about feelings, it's about trade offs. Let's think of minimum wage like a price for labor, because that's what it is. When the government raises that price, employers have to decide, can I afford to keep all my workers? 2. Can I raise prices without losing customers? 3. Or do I need to cut hours, automate, or hire fewer people? In other words, someone has to pay for the higher wage. It's great if productivity rises too, but if it doesn't, businesses may cut back. This is why some economists warn a higher minimum wage can lead to unemployment for low skilled workers, higher prices, or fewer job opportunities, especially for young people trying to get their first job. Let's look at two real world stories. In 2015, Seattle became one of the first major cities in the US to raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. At first, many celebrated. Workers were earning more. But later studies from the University of Washington showed something surprising. Yes, workers were earning higher hourly wages, but total hours worked dropped. That meant workers actually earned slightly less overall than before. The reason? Many businesses cut back shifts or reduced staff to manage costs. So, higher wages per hour, but fewer hours to work. On the flip side, when the UK introduced its national minimum wage in 1999, economists expected job losses, but that didn't really happen. Why? Because the initial rate was modest. It didn't shock the system. Businesses could adapt gradually. The takeaway: context matters. The impact depends on how big the increase is, how strong the economy is, and how flexible businesses are. Now, here's where the 2020s twist comes in. When you raise minimum wages in an era of rapid automation, companies might not just cut workers, they might replace them. Think about self-checkout machines at supermarkets or AI chatbots replacing entry-level service roles. When labor becomes more expensive, businesses start investing in machines faster. It's not out of greed, it's survival economics. So, ironically, a well-meaning wage hike can speed up automation, making it even harder for low-skilled workers to find jobs in the long run. Now, let's be fair. There are also strong arguments in favor of raising the minimum wage. When done gradually and realistically, workers earn a living wage, not a survival wage. It can reduce poverty and boost morale. It can increase consumer spending, which keeps the economy growing. Plus, some research, like studies from the UK and parts of the US, show that modest increases don't always lead to job losses, especially when the labor market is strong. So, the truth isn't black or white, it's gray, and context matters more than ideology. So, what should you actually take away from this? Here's the real story behind the myth. Raising the minimum wage can help, but only when the economy, businesses, and productivity can support it. If it's raised too high, too fast, the very workers it's meant to help may lose out. and if it's too slow, workers can't survive and inequality widens. The real question isn't should we raise it, but how do we raise it smartly? In other words, economics is all about balance, not slogans. That's all for today's episode of the Common Sense podcast by Ezyecons. I would like to hear your thoughts. Comment down below what economic myth you want me to cover next. If you enjoyed today's myth busting session, hit follow and share this with a friend who loves debating economics. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep thinking like an economist.